This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
The search for Jack and Lilly. CBC obtains new information about the missing Pictou County children. Enrollment drop. Cape Breton University sees a steep decline in international student numbers. And on the runway, after recovering from a serious accident, this Nova Scotia model walks in Paris Fashion Week.
The weekend is here and looking at a chance for showers this weekend, but also some sunny breaks in the mix. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. Court documents obtained by CBC reveal new details in the disappearance of Jack and Lilly Sullivan. Several redactions were lifted today on information previously withheld by the RCMP, including the fact two neighbors heard a vehicle coming and going in the middle of the night. Angela McIver reports.
For the first time, we're hearing detailed accounts from neighbors who were awake in the quiet hours before 4-year-old Jack and 6-year-old Lilly Sullivan disappeared from their home in Pictou County. The children were reported missing from their home at 10:01 on the morning of Friday, May 2nd. According to court documents, neighbor Brad Wong told police he heard a loud vehicle coming and going 3 or 4 times after midnight and into the early hours of the morning. Wong said his house is at an elevated position from the children's home on Gairloch Road in Lansdowne, and he could see vehicle lights over the treetops. He said the vehicle would drive off in the distance and he could hear it stop and then return. He said it remained in earshot the entire time. Another neighbor, Justin Smith, told RCMP that at 1:30 a.m., he heard a car turn around by the railroad tracks near the area of Gairloch Road and Lansdowne Station Road. He said it made a noise, then the vehicle was quiet for about 2 minutes, then drove off towards Lairg Road. Smith told police he later spoke with Wong, who informed him the vehicle was the children's stepfather, Daniel Martel. The court records also detail Martel's account of the evening. He told police he went to bed fairly early and didn't wake up until light the next morning. The document said the children's mother, Malaya Brooks Murray, told police she went to bed around 9 p.m. She said Martel stayed up and she doesn't know what he did. Brooks Murray has not responded to our request for comment. In several interviews, though, Martel has told CBC he had nothing to do with the children's disappearance. And in a phone interview Friday, Martel said no one from the family left the property that night and they did not have any visitors.
I didn't do anything. I know Malaya didn't do anything. I know my mother didn't do anything. Those are 3 people on the property. I mean, after the polygraph exams, they should have known right there. We didn't kill any of the kids, or we didn't kill the kids.
RCMP says the case is still being investigated under the Missing Persons Act and is not a criminal case. Angela McIver, CBC News, Halifax.
2 people are dead after 3 vehicles collided just outside Halifax this morning. The collision happened on Highway 107 near Mineville just after 7 a.m. Police say 2 eastbound cars collided before one of them collided with another car traveling westbound. The driver of one of the eastbound cars, a 31-year-old woman, died at the scene. A child passenger was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The driver of the westbound car, a 48-year-old man, also died. The cause of the crash is under investigation. An 8-year-old girl was sent to hospital after being struck by a vehicle on Almont Avenue in New Glasgow Wednesday afternoon. Police say the driver of a pickup truck was traveling north on the street when their view was obstructed by another vehicle stopped at the east side of Fraser Street. Speed was not a factor in the collision. The girl suffered non-life-threatening injuries. Cape Breton University is seeing far fewer international students attending their programs, and that's led to job losses at the school. According to school officials, one of the problems, a federal capping on student study permits. Kyle Moore reports.
There is a lot happening on the grounds of Cape Breton University. A new medical campus is nearing completion and work is underway for a Discovery and Innovation Center. But the number of international students on campus are down by almost 60%.
There is a cap in place set by the government, but the challenge is a combination of policy changes that the government announced in a very short period of time that has created uncertainty in the market and damage to the Canadian brand for students around the world who are making big decisions about their future.
There are 3,300 less international students at CBU compared to last year. This spring, the university was forced to cut jobs. 112 term positions and 56 full-time positions were removed.
It is a lot of money, and it's coming on the heels of a very significant loss of revenue, and that was the exercise of the spring. So it becomes increasingly more difficult to try to balance the books at CBU.
Fewer students is also having an effect on the wider community. According to CBRM, transit revenue is down $225,000 in the first 5 months of this fiscal year.
Well, to have a decline of over 5,000 students has a direct economic impact on your community, but also has an impact on your ability to attract new immigrants. It's a natural path. If people are here for education and invested in the community and connected with the community, hopefully they'll want to be in our community.
Mayor Cecil Clark says he's hoping government will assess the situation from the national level.
We see a lot of help wanted signs as well. People are looking as part of the labor shortage that we have, especially in the retail sector. There's been challenges. So students help fill some of those gaps.
School officials are now planning to review their enrollment numbers and will consider what changes should be made in the coming years. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
Opposition leaders are questioning the Nova Scotia government's commitment to land and water protection following comments by the Environment Minister on Thursday. As Michael Gorman reports, there are concerns the government could walk away from available federal funding and that some land that's now protected could be in jeopardy.
Environment Minister Tim Hallman says he's committed to meeting legislated targets for protecting land and water in the province. But with a renewed emphasis on natural resource development, Hallman says there must be a balanced approach to conservation efforts.
What I mean by that is could there be economic use of this piece of land? That has always been part of the variables that are taken into consideration.
Hallman says his government is laser focused on economic development, and it must determine how land and water conservation factors into that. But people who expect the government to make good on legislated targets to protect 15% of land and water by next year and 20% by 2030 say that work was already done in this government commissioned report from 2017.
It really lays out the economic drivers that protected areas are, and it also laid out the economic opportunities that would be for more expansions.
3 years ago, the province signed a deal with Ottawa that would get it up to $25 million to help protect habitat, species at risk, and biodiversity. But to date, only about half of that has been spent, and Hallman could not commit to spending the rest by a March deadline. The interim Liberal leader says the government's priorities seem to shift on a whim.
It's whatever is flashy for the day that they can produce a video about to market to Nova Scotians.
The NDP leader notes that Hallman's comments come as his government has indicated a willingness to consider a proposal that would free up part of West Mabou Beach Provincial Park for a golf course development.
It's great for them to talk about economic development. It's important for our province, but we also have to talk about the future of our province, the safety of its citizens, the future of our tourism industry.
Both opposition leaders doubt the government's ability to hit its legislated conservation targets. Michael Gorman, CBC News, Halifax.
All right, Ryan is here for a first look at the weather, and of course, it is weekend time. How's it shaping up?
Yeah, we are looking at a chance for some showers continuing, Amy, but those chances really dwindling as we move throughout the weekend, and the chance for a little bit of sunshine in the mix actually getting greater as the weekend progresses. Now for Saturday, you can see temperatures in that 12 to 14 range. We're going to be seeing those northerly winds continue as well. Now, not quite as gusty as it was on Friday, but we will be looking at those winds, yes, in the mix again on Saturday. Better chance for sun the further to the west you go, and that's actually where we'll see our chances for showers really dropping off as well. Now for Sunday, it's just an isolated risk for a shower here for Cape Breton and across the North Shore. And again, the further west you go, the brighter the sky and the less chance for showers we will see. We're looking at those temperatures again in those low to mid-teens as this low pulls away, area of high pressure moves in. More shower chances, thankfully, for next week. We'll break it down with your full 7-day forecast coming up in a few minutes, Amy.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nova Scotia Power has been ordered to refund more than $1 million to customers because of a coal power plant outage in 2023. An audit found Nova Scotia Power paid more than $1 million in extra fuel costs because of the outage. It happened when staff failed to open a pressure valve on a boiler pump and seriously damaged the equipment. The Nova Scotia Energy Board said the outage was avoidable and customers should not be on the hook. The utility will have to pay back about $1.1 million. That means each of its $500,000 customers will only get a few dollars each. The Atlantic Lottery Corporation returned almost $500 million in profit last year from its games in the 4 Atlantic provinces. According to its latest annual report, that's almost $12 million more than the previous year. Most of the growth comes from online gaming, while other areas such as VLTs, sports gambling, and Lotto 649 were slightly down. Well, from Pictou County to the Paris runway, one teen is beating the odds, not just in the fast-paced fashion world, but in a long road to recovery after a serious car accident. The CBC's Jane Sponigal has that story.
Walking in Paris Fashion Week is the pinnacle of chic. It can be a struggle to make it to those catwalks, but 17-year-old Corinne Cameron from Westville took it in her stride.
Walking in Fashion Week was so exciting. I wasn't even scared. I think I was just like, wow, like it's just so, I don't know, it's just so crazy that like 2 years ago, like I was literally like, at this exact time I would have been in the hospital.
Mm-hmm. That's because 2 years ago, Corinne was in a terrible car accident.
And I did not wear my seatbelt, and the driver was going very fast, and I think I went flying through the window. I'm pretty sure that's what a lot of people think. And I tumbled into someone's driveway.
A few of her injuries, a broken collarbone and pelvis, a torn liver, eye damage. Then she had a major stroke in the left hemisphere of her brain.
And he was just showing us slide after slide after slide of her brain, and it just felt like the end of the world.
The stroke meant Corinne had to learn how to speak again.
I had a stroke. Stroke.
Oh my God!
Stroke.
During our almost hour-long interview, Corinne hardly hesitated and just needed to check with her mom a few times in moments like this.
Do you want to do like the practice thing? Not practice, what is it called?
Casting call. Casting?
Yeah, I can't say it. It's
You
hard.
could say audition.
Yeah.
Could you say audition?
Addiction?
No. But she almost never complains about it. She complains a lot more about not being 5'9" than she does about having the stroke. And when she went away to Italy on a school trip, she said, I'm going to go to the Vatican and I'm just going to pray. And I thought she was going to say for my stroke to heal, but she said to be 5'9".
Being 5'9" could help with her modeling career, which only started in June, and nothing is slowing her down.
And to see her walk, in stilettos on cobblestone when she can't feel one of her feet, and you would never know from looking at her that what she's overcoming while she's walking. It was incredible.
In Paris, Corinne walked in 2 shows and had a casting call for a Japanese designer, and her agent is on the phone with some news.
I don't know how you feel about packing your bags to head back to Paris in March of 2026.
Oh!
Back?
Yes.
The castings and the upcoming shows.
Oh my God, I would love to come back to Paris.
She is a miracle. It's a miracle that she survived, but it's a miracle that she has made the recovery that she has had, and it's really not explainable.
Corinne might have an explanation.
It's so weird, I'm just I don't know, I'm just so happy. And I still had a stroke, and my speech still isn't amazing and phenomenal. I can say that's a good one, good word. And I don't know, I just really feel like life is really short, and you gotta always try.
Jane Sponigal, CBC News, Westville.
Well, it may be October, but there's still some flowers in bloom. Ryan is up next with the full weather forecast. We will see you on the other side of the break.
This weather update is brought to you in part by Atlantic Lottery's iGames. Play hundreds of games on the Atlantic Lottery app or at alc.ca.
And Ryan's back with his full weather forecast. So cool and breezy today. The weekend, any kind of improvement? A slight one, right?
Slight improvement for sure, but that low still offshore is going to have an influence on us, and that's going to keep the northerly winds in the mix, especially for Saturday. And the clouds are going to be, I think, stubborn both days this weekend, especially on Saturday. Have a look first and foremost at our webcam view for this evening. A beautiful sunset.
That is nice. Sort of cotton candy sky there.
Yeah, Burnt Coat Head, low tide there. Always a beautiful spot, but with a sunset like this, yeah, hard to top. And yeah, the wind, you can see the trees kind of rocking back and forth there in the foreground. This is, of course, thanks to that northerly wind, which has been in place throughout the day today. Current winds Sustained near 20 kilometers per hour. Some gusts at last check up towards 40 and 50 kilometers per hour, especially in through that Tri-County area. So that's, where the winds have been most prevalent. Let's just go back to those current temps. I blew through that scene pretty quick. There's the current temps near 10 degrees in Amherst, and back towards Back Row, it's at 14. That's our hot spot. And that's going to be the case again for the weekend as well. This northerly flow means that temperatures are going to be warmest here down through the South Shore into the Shelburne County area. Temps coolest in the north and east. So we just showed you the wind, so we'll go ahead to the satellite and radar picture. Lots of clouds in the mix today, and there have been some of these very isolated showers in through Cape Breton and the North Shore today, as expected. The radar really not even picking them up. Now, as we look back, there's the low, which is spinning around. Basically, it's been parked here for the last couple of days, right? But it is going to start to work its way to the east, and we are looking at that area of high pressure off to our west. That's going to be moving in and continuing to at least try to clear the skies through Saturday and into Sunday. A couple of weather systems to watch rather next week. They are going to develop along this boundary between the colder air and the warmer air. How about Calgary just at 7 degrees this afternoon? Churchill at 7, Yellowknife at 2, Iqaluit at 0, into the 30s along the Gulf of Mexico, and high 20s into Florida. Now, as we look at the forecast for tonight, temperatures are going to be right near 10 degrees. Those northerly winds sustain near 20. We'll continue to see some gusts in the 30, 40 kilometer per hour range. Those gusts towards 50 at last check. Those will are expected to taper off just a little bit. So not much showing up here with the hour by hour, but we will continue to see just these little streamers of showers, drizzle, and that's going to continue into Saturday morning. And the chance for Saturday morning does extend even down towards the west, but into the afternoon, it does look like it becomes more of an isolated chance for Cape Breton and across the Northumberland shore. Temperatures tomorrow in this northerly wind are going to continue to struggle. We're looking at overnight, daytime highs rather in the 12 to 14 range right across Cape Breton and the eastern parts of the mainland. Those sustained winds near 20, gusting 30 to 40. In through central areas, similar story, 12 to 14. That northerly wind keeping that October feel, a real pumpkin spice type day for tomorrow for sure, with or perhaps just something warm in your cup. Now, as we look at the forecast in the west, similar story, 12 to 15 degrees. And so if you are going to grab a pumpkin tomorrow, make sure you are dressed for it. Similar story on Sunday, though lighter winds on Sunday, so a more pleasant day overall to be outside. We'll see a best chance for some solid mix of sun and cloud skies. Digby, Yarmouth, and Shelburne counties. Looks like the clouds will dominate, likely more than the sun will in through central areas, and there is still a chance for some isolated showers for Cape Breton and the east, still spinning around with this northerly flow. High pressure is going to continue to be overhead, in fact, even moving to the east as we move into Monday, and here comes our next system, which will move in for Tuesday. And so, yes, as we look at the forecast for next week, that chance for showers Tuesday, that's a pretty quick mover. I'll show you that in a second. Then another system Wednesday. That one looks more substantial. Later Wednesday and then clearing Thursday. Here's the long-range outlook for next week. So here's that first system that moves through with a pretty quick moving band. The models have been pretty consistent with that, and it really doesn't look like it's going to amount to a whole lot. A little more optimistic about this one, rolling in late Wednesday in through Thursday, and this does look like it'll have a little more juice with it, so to speak. So that one, again, late Wednesday into Thursday. We'll keep you posted on that, of course, next week.
All right, some good news there. Thanks for that, Ryan.
Thank you.
Well, hundreds of women gathered at the Halifax Convention Centre today to talk about menopause. It was the first time there's been an event of this scale that addresses the life stage, and as Carolyn Ray tells us, it's clear there is a need for more.
Dancing, cheering, on their feet. The First Atlantic Menopause Convention was no typical medical event. It sold out weeks ago, more than 700 tickets. Carloads of friends traveled to Halifax from across the region to talk about what they're going through. They quickly learned they're not alone.
Hot flashes, anger, sad,
brain fog,
horrible
brain fog,
things fat,
weight gain.
Yeah, that's it, weight gain. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
There was so much interest in the event. Organizers say there was a lineup down the street 45 minutes before the doors even opened. And they say in the last few days they had to turn down several hundred people who were scrambling to get tickets to participate.
A few of us got a little teary when we opened the doors and when we saw how many people were here lined up to get in. But very proud and really, really feeling great about the atmosphere. The energy here is really positive.
It speaks volumes. It's really sending a strong message that women really are ready to talk about this and to be seen and to be heard.
The idea was to create a space that flushes out the snake oil theories, the terrible advice that thrives in online forums. Things like cutting out caffeine and carbs or even avoiding aerobic training, all scientifically debunked. Instead, the room was filled with experts and local businesses who use evidence-based approaches to help.
I think many women feel alone, and certainly, I felt like that too when I was going through it. So just knowing I can share my experience with others is really uplifting.
They discussed the importance of sleep and nutrition, and there was blunt talk and laughter about menopause and sexual health.
Nobody ever sat you down the way that you get
100%.
sit down and, learn about puberty. Yeah, there's nothing. And so a lot of it we've been on our own trying to figure out.
Yeah.
With this much demand, organizers say it's clear this is just the start. The convention will likely become an annual event in Halifax in hopes that it will be bigger and reach even more people next year. Carolyn Ray, CBC News, Halifax.
Coming up, timber tariffs, what the latest levies on lumber will mean for Nova Scotia's forestry industry. Last month, U.S. President Donald Trump signed a presidential proclamation announcing an additional 10% tariff on imports of softwood timber and lumber. It means Nova Scotia producers will feel the pinch. Burgess is with Forest Nova Scotia. So until now, this province has been exempt from the previous U.S. tariffs on lumber because of the CUSMA trade agreement, but producers here will now face a new 10% tariff. What will this mean for Nova Scotia producers, do you think?
Well, Amy, thanks for having me on your show. The 10% tariffs really, in my mind, is one of the a death by 1,000 cuts to a forestry sector that's been under pressure for a long time. One of the reasons why our Nova Scotia sawmills have been excluded from the softwood lumber agreement that the rest of the country faces, and those really massive tariffs that the rest of the country faces, is because our sawmills source their logs and their studwood from private woodlots on a competitive process. So they pay some of the highest prices for their logs and studwood than any other mill really in North America. So it excludes us from some of those countervailing duties that the other provinces face. So that comes at a price. They pay a very high price for their wood. So adding another 10% just makes their businesses less profitable. Any business in Nova Scotia, if they take a 10% hit to their bottom line, it's going to be hard.
So will sawmills absorb that new tariff, or can they?
Amy, like any business, when there's a 10% cost that comes to your business, that's hard. So some of the sawmills, depending on their contracts with their customers in the United States, may be able to pass some of that cost along. Others, they may have to absorb it. But in general, it's a 10% downward pressure on the market. So you could see things like some of the customers not ordering as much. Because I think the bigger impact is going to be, it's an increased cost to the U.S. consumer, which puts downward pressure on demand. So you're going to see U.S. Customers maybe not build that deck, or maybe delay building that new house. It's putting a downward pressure on the construction industry in general in the United States. I wouldn't say as far as a recession, but you could see that happen. So less demand for our softwood lumber, and that's going to be an increased cost to our mills here in Nova Scotia.
Well, how long can the local industry withstand this?
Well, it's going to be it'll be a while. There's things we can do locally, though. So we can actually start using more of our own lumber, or we can do things like support this mass timber facility that's going into Elmsdale. If we can actually build more buildings locally, it'll help. It's not going to solve the entire problem, but we can also do other things like be more efficient in our forestry operations, be more efficient in our trucking operations, and allow higher weights on our highways with trucks and things like that. So we can probably gain some efficiencies to make up some of the differences. But in general, it's very bad. Tariffs are bad, and but there's things we can do locally to help and sustain it. And then hopefully our provincial and federal governments are actually doing some things to actually get rid of this 10% tariffs. The 10% 232 tariffs really are what the U.S. is claiming as national security threats. But, softwood lumber from Nova Scotia being a threat to the United States, I don't think so.
Now, speaking of financial relief, Ottawa is promising some help from U.S. tariffs, but because we only face a 10% tariff here, other parts of the country, it's 45%. Do you think Nova Scotia will see any of that money?
There's a potential, and there's some negotiations and discussions underway with different groups to see how we can access some of that funding to help us out. There's a reason we're excluded from the softwood lumber agreement to these other big tariffs, is because our mills already pay a very, very high price for their supply of logs and studwood. So there is a chance that we're going to have a higher access to some of this funding, but we don't want to put our exclusion to the softwood lumber agreement at risk. It's important that we maintain our exclusion from that agreement and stay under CUSMA.
You touched earlier about the Buy Canadian movement. How strong is it right now, and do you think it is sustainable?
I think it's sustainable. Now, Canada and Nova Scotia produce more softwood lumber than we consume locally ourselves. So that's going to take a big effort. So there's things like encouraging improvements in efficiencies in our own sector to help us work better and help us work more efficiently and be more cost effective, use more lumber locally. It'll all help, but it's not going to replace this massive market we have with the United States.
All right, we will have to leave it there. Thanks so much for your time. We do appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Amy.
Coming up, Volodymyr Zelensky is in Washington meeting with Donald Trump to discuss new military support for Ukraine. And a city in the UK is facing backlash over its move to ban Israeli fans from attending a football match with the team from Tel Aviv. Welcome back. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has met again with President Donald Trump at the White House. They discussed whether the U.S. will provide long-range missiles to Ukraine.
Ukraine has such thousands of our production drones, but we don't have Tomahawks. That's why we need Tomahawks. But United States is a very strong production, and the United States has Tomahawks and other missiles, very strong missiles, but they can have our thousands of drones. That's why where we can work together, where we can strengthen American production.
The meeting comes a day after Trump's phone call with Russia's president. Vladimir Putin warned against the move, citing a new stage of escalation. Russia's war on Ukraine is now nearing its 4th year. The federal government unveiled some new border measures that will be included in the upcoming budget. It says it's fulfilling a promise it made to Canadians.
During the election campaign, we were clear that our borders had to be secure so everyone in Canada can feel safe, and we promised to hire 1,000 new CBC officers to bolster our border protection efforts. Today, we're announcing that we will fund those positions as well as other important enhancements that will help CBC officers do their jobs more effectively.
Ottawa will spend $617 million over 5 years to hire and train those new officers. It will also boost the CBSA's recruit stipend from $125 to $525 a week and improve benefits and make early retirement easier. It's part of the government's pledge to crack down on cross-border traffic in drugs, illegal guns, and stolen cars. Trucks are arriving in the hundreds each day, bringing humanitarian aid to Gaza. But a top UN official says it's still not enough. This as anger is still brewing in Israel over the delayed return of the deceased hostages. The CBC's Tom Perry has the latest on the desperate aid effort and the tenuous ceasefire.
Digging amid the devastation. Heavy equipment turning up the earth in central Gaza, an effort Hamas says to find the missing remains of deceased hostages from Israel. In Israel, the families of hostages whose bodies have been returned are burying their dead. This memorial for 27-year-old Inbar Heyman.
I need to show that even in death, we respect the dying and the victim of the October 7th, and we won't forget him till everyone are back home.
The fact some bodies remain in Gaza is a source of grief and fury in Israel. It accuses Hamas of reneging on its commitment under the ceasefire agreement. But Hamas says it's returned all the bodies it can and will need help finding others buried in the rubble. Israel had placed restrictions on aid entering Gaza in retaliation. Even now, trucks carrying humanitarian assistance are entering at just 2 crossings into the territory. Aid groups say shipments are increasing, but not nearly enough.
The ceasefire has opened a narrow window of opportunity, and WFP is moving very quickly and swiftly to scale up food assistance.
But there are warnings. Aid groups say getting supplies to Gaza City and northern Gaza is extremely challenging. The United Nations top aid official was in Rafah, Egypt this week. He's calling for a dramatic surge in aid shipments and for all routes into Gaza to be opened up.
We want to reach everyone in Gaza with food. We want to get 700,000 kids back into school. We want to get the power and water back on. We want to start to rebuild the health sector. Massive, massive jobs ahead.
That work just getting started under a fragile ceasefire, aid groups trying to make sure people in Gaza are fed, Israel demanding its hostages finally come home. Tom Perry, CBC News, Cairo.
While the world has been watching the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, CBC's The Fifth Estate went to the occupied West Bank. There, it investigated the connection between Israel's settler violence and how Canadian charities are supporting Israeli settlements that Canada says are illegal under international law and a barrier to peace. Fifth Estate co-host Joanna Remiliotis reports.
In the West Bank, a familiar scene plays out. Khadr and Fatima Nawaja say they were sleeping outside on their farm in the Palestinian village of Susia to get some respite from the August heat. They woke to Israeli settlers attacking them.
اعتدوا علي أنا من يوم ما صحيت من النوم بالحجار يعني مش حجار بسيطة بعد احتاج لحجار بالعصي يعني
مش قادر لا أضرب ولا أدافع عن حالي ولا أدافع عن جوزي إيدي نازلة تذكرت إنها بنتي نايمة في الغرفة.
The United Nations says settler violence against Palestinians in the West Bank has surged since the Hamas attack of October 7th, 2023.
Here the home of Khadir.
Nasser Nawaja shows us where his relatives were struck. He says attacks are often met with impunity because Israeli soldiers do little, if anything, to stop them.
Nobody help us, nobody save us.
Canada condemns the escalating violence, as well as the expansion of Israeli settlements, including here in Susia, which are considered illegal under international law. Details of filings sent by Canadian charities to the Canada Revenue Agency reveal millions of charitable dollars are supporting settlements and Israeli military personnel, contrary to public policy.
Canada promotes the idea of Palestinian human rights, and Israeli settlements in the occupied territories violate all of these principles.
In one example, we were offered a Canadian tax receipt for donating towards an Israeli settlement, also called Susia, that is near the Nawaja's village, even though the funds were solicited by an Israeli entity called the Har Hebron Fund, which Canada sanctioned last year for its role in facilitating settler violence. After we asked to interview the organizations involved, we got an email informing us our donation was taken in error and would be refunded. The charities we reached out to turned down or ignored our requests for interviews. Meanwhile, critics question why Canadians are still getting tax breaks for those donations.
I think most people would be outraged. This is many millions of dollars that could otherwise be benefiting Canadians.
Joanna Rumaliotis, CBC News, Toronto.
You can watch Funding the Occupation tonight on the Fifth Estate at 9 p.m. local time on CBC Television and GEM. You can also stream it now on YouTube. England's Aston Villa Football Club will be hosting a team from Tel Aviv in a Europa League match on November 6th. But Israeli soccer fans won't be there to see it. They were banned by the city of Birmingham after police cited public safety concerns due to the risk of protests. The CBC's Anna Cunningham has the details and the reaction.
This is a decision that really has sparked controversy, not least from the dual British-Israeli national Emily Damari, who describes herself as a die-hard Maccabi Tel Aviv fan. She was held hostage by Hamas in Gaza for more than a year after the attacks of October the 7th. And she's posted this on social media saying, "I am shocked to my core with this outrageous decision to ban me, my family and my friends from attending an Aston Villa game in the UK. Football is a way of bringing people together, irrespective of their faith, colour or religion. And this disgusting decision does the exact opposite." Now, for some context, Birmingham is the UK's second biggest city after London, and for decades, it's had a large Muslim population. And it certainly is a city that is no stranger to policing big events. The local police consulted with local authorities, and in a statement, police say this decision is based on current intelligence and previous incidents, including violent clashes and hate crime offences that occurred during the 2024 UEFA Europa League match between Ajax and Maccabi Tel Aviv in Amsterdam. And they say, based on their professional judgment, they believe that the measure will help mitigate risks to public safety. We know that Britain's police force is operationally independent from the government, but the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's spoken out on social media saying this is the wrong decision. He says we will not tolerate anti-Semitism on our streets. The role of the police is to ensure all football fans can enjoy the game without fear of violence or intimidation. This is now a row that has thrown politics involving Israel and a local pro-Palestinian community in Birmingham directly into the spotlight of the sports arena. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
Prince Andrew says he's giving up his royal title and other honors, including the Duke of York. He released a statement saying the continued accusations about him were distracting from the work of the royal family, and says the decision was made after discussions with his brother, King Charles. He will remain a prince, a title he received from his late mother, the Queen Elizabeth. His ex-wife will be known as Sarah Ferguson and no longer as Duchess of York. But their daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, will retain their titles. Prince Andrew has faced years of criticism and scandal over his ties to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. His announcement comes just days ahead of the publication of a posthumous book by Virginia Giuffre, who alleges she was trafficked by Epstein and had sex with Prince Andrew when she was 17. Prince Andrew continues to deny the allegations. Well, it ain't over till it's over. Baseball's fame warning has been underlined this week by the Toronto Blue Jays. First, they lost 2 straight playoff games. Now they're 2 wins away from the World Series. The CBC's Jamie Strachan looks at their new momentum and the new fear among Mariners fans in Seattle.
I sat in the dark and I did not have a stiff drink or two. I had 12.
On Seattle morning radio, Mariner Nation was in full panic mode.
Just bad baseball. It's hard to fathom having a 2-0 lead and coming back home to 45,000 crazy loud fans to have 2 complete and utter duds. To that point in the tweet, I agree with everything.
Now the shoe is on the other foot. This series now tied at 2. After another Blue Jay beatdown in Game 4.
And he's in safely. I get the feel of disappointment. I understand the feeling of being cursed or just nothing ever goes our way. We just can't quite get over the hump to get there.
Morning Drive host as Mariners fans are conditioned to be disappointed. Since coming into the league in 1977, the same year as the Blue Jays, Seattle has never played in a World Series.
They've had a history of losing, and so these fans are, scarred. So it takes a lot. So the moment things start going south, man, it's hard for them.
Nothing has gone according to plan in this series. Both teams, usually hard to beat at home, have lost both games in their home parks.
I don't think our approach changes. I think you have to kind of be ready to pivot as the game unfolds.
These games in Seattle, a different feel for Blue Jay fans. Thousands crossed the border and have had lots to cheer about.
Blue Jays!
Awesome, we won!
The two fan bases have a long-standing friendly rivalry, and now it's Mariner fans searching for optimism.
So we're in shock, but we can do it.
This series has been unpredictable. The only sure thing is that no matter what happens today in Seattle, this series is heading back to Toronto for Game 6. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Seattle.
Well, Canada's main stock index finished lower on Friday, weighed down by losses in the basic materials sector, while U.S. markets rose. Here's a look at the numbers as we go to break.
This weather update is brought to you in part by Atlantic Lottery's iGames. Play hundreds of games on the Atlantic Lottery app or at alc.ca.
And we're back to wrap things up. And October has been good for the inbox, right?
It really has. Honestly, it's just day after day, I open the inbox and there are a ton of pictures in there.
We like to see that, don't we?
Love to see it. And thank you to everybody who takes the time to submit. Really appreciate it. Of course, can't show them all. One a night. And here is tonight's entry, which is a beautiful one. And we're going to go back to Cape Breton, Iona. And how about this? From a bird's eye view.
Oh, with a drone photo?
I believe so.
Very nice.
And Neela with a terrific photo. And yeah, the fall colors certainly popping there in
clouds
Cape Breton.
reflecting on the water there?
Yeah, great eye. Beautiful stuff. Thanks to Neela. Ryan's picks at cbc.ca. Now, as we look at the forecast and we're watching that low slowly pulling away to the east, it's been parked there for a couple of days. It will continue to move to the east, area of high pressure moving in from the west. And so we'll gradually dry things out here. Really Saturday, just looking at that chance for showers, primarily in the morning, and then into the afternoon, it's just a slight risk for the northeast. Temperatures are going to be looking around the 12 to 14 range. That's not far from where we should be for this time of year. A pretty seasonal day overall. The northerly winds will continue to be a factor on Saturday. It does look like the winds will be lighter on Sunday, still from the north, but 10 to 20. So not nearly as influential on the forecast for Sunday. That will allow temperatures to bump up a little bit as well. Should be around 14 to 15 degrees for the Atlantic coastline. Looking at those temperatures near 13, closer to Cape Breton and the North Shore. And that chance for an isolated shower does linger for Sunday in the northeast. Monday looks pretty quiet, though clouds likely still to be a bit dominant. And then for Tuesday, pretty good chance for showers, but a greater risk for some beneficial showers later Wednesday into Thursday.
That's a good thing. All right, well, Anna Posey is believed to be Italy's oldest barista. She's 100 years young. No plans of quitting anytime soon. Each day before dawn, she walks behind the counter to fire up the espresso machine, something she's done for more than 8 decades. Anna began her career in hospitality as a teenager at the end of the Second World War in a family restaurant.
She and her late husband purchased their own place in the Italian Alps 65 years ago, and she began behind the bar ever since. Something else to celebrate. Anna's 101st birthday is coming up next month.
Oh, happy birthday. That is a lot of coffee.
Absolutely.
And that's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Have a great weekend.